Okay, so we've had a quick overview of how to use patterns. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply a pattern to our project. If I just bring up the finished design here, we can see that we have the white, well, they're not white, we have some squares on there that are patterned. So that's what we need to create next. We need to create one of these and then define that as a pattern and then fill the page with it and then get the selection down to what we want. So I'll just minimize that, and the first thing we need to do then is to create a new document for which to put our pattern on. So new, and it's quite a small document. It just wants to be 10 pixels by 10 pixels, so it's square. Resolution 72 per inch is fine. Color mode RGB color, 8-bit. Now the background contents, you probably have yours set to white at the moment. What we actually want it though is to be set to transparent, just so that there is no background layer on there, and so our square goes over the top of the project when we come to apply that. You'll see that shortly anyway. So click OK. So as you can see here now we have a very small little document, 10 pixels by 10 pixels. So the first thing I need to do really is to zoom into that, because it's otherwise it would be very difficult to work with, just like my speech. So there's a couple of ways we can zoom in there. We can go to View and Zoom In here, or as you can see by the keyboard shortcut, that's Control and Plus, which I find to be a much easier and quicker way to do things. So if I just hold down Control and press plus a few times, as you can see we're zooming into there now. 1600% is actually the furthest we can zoom into any document, but that's fine for our needs. The next thing I'm going to do is put some guides on there, just so that I can position the square exactly in the center, and then I know that the gaps around the side will be all the same, so the pattern when it repeats will be nice and uniform. So the size I want around the edge is going to be 2 pixels. So using the guides, and again holding down shift just to constrain this to exact 1 pixel gaps, I'm going to drag that one down, as we can see on the left hand side here, to 2 pixels. And then dragging one from the left hand side, I'm going to drag that in so it is on 2 pixels also. Then I'll drag another one from the top. Now, knowing that this is a 10 pixel document, I need to drag that down to 8 pixels, just so I have that 2 pixel gap still at the bottom. And then dragging one from the side, I'm going to put one over on the right hand side, again as we can see here at 8 pixels. So now I know that this gap around the outside of the guide square that I have is just constantly 2 pixels. Next thing I need to do is to create the actual square itself there, and so that wants to be white, so we have to make sure that our foreground color here is actually white, or 255, 255, 255, as mine is there. So I'll just click OK. Next thing, just grab the marquee tool, making sure it's set to rectangular, and just click somewhere near the guide so it can snap to it, and down to the bottom right hand corner there, and let go. So that's our that's going to be our square. The next thing we need to do is just to fill that with the white color. So we can go to Edit and Fill and use foreground color. That's obviously the long way of doing it. If I just cancel that, we can do the shortcut method of holding down Alt on the keyboard and hitting backspace, and that just fills with our foreground color. I'll just click in the outer area there just to release the selection. So that's good. That now is the pattern that we are going to use on our project. The first thing we need to do though with that is to actually define it, to make sure the computer remembers that we have this pattern. So we need to select the entire document, so we can do that by we're just grabbing the marquee tool and selecting the whole lot like that. Alternatively, using the keyboard method, I'll just go through that. It's just holding down Control and pressing A, and as you can see by the dashed line, that's just selected everything there. Just a quicker way to do that. And the next thing, as we did in the previous video, is to go Edit and Define Pattern. So we see our little thumbnail here of the square with the gap around it, and the option to give it a name. You can call this anything as long as you remember it. I'm just going to call mine PM for Project Minisite Square Pattern. Okay, so that's defined now, so we can just minimize this and return to our actual design. So the first thing we need on there is a new layer into which to put this pattern, and I'm going to create that just above the header highlight layer. So with that layer selected, we'll click our favourite little icon down here, create new layer, and double clicking on there to rename that as pattern. Enter. Fantastic. So we have our layer, we just need our pattern on there now, and to do that we go to Edit and Fill, or Shift and F5 as we all know by now. So use pattern, yes, that's correct. And in custom pattern here, what you need to do is just click that little arrow to open the pattern picker, as it says there. And you may be up at the top here with all the presets. What we need to do is just scroll down to the bottom of that list where our latest ones are. And as you can see here, PM square pattern 10 pixels by 10 pixels. So that's the one that we just created, so that's the one we want. So if I just click on there and click OK, hey presto, our entire page is now filled with the rectangular pattern. So you can see one little rectangle up in the corner, and that's just been repeated numerous times, so it's filled the entire page. Okay, now that's obviously a little bit strong at the moment, and it's kind of awkward to see what needs to go on behind it, so we'll just take the layer opacity down for now to 25%. Enter. So that's better now, we can see more or less what's going on underneath it. At the moment the pattern covers everything, including this outer area here, the background, which we don't want. We just want to constrain it to within our main shape. So to do that, we just need to hold down Control. We need to load the selection of that shape as we have done in the past. So again, we'll hold down Control and just click the thumbnail of that layer until our dashed line appears here, which is fantastic. We will, as we have in the past, contract that selection then. Select, Modify, Contract, and we'll do that by 4 pixels. Okay, we'll just watch that shrink, just like magic. Fantastic. And obviously because we're getting rid of the things outside of the selection, we need to inverse that selection. So selection and inverse. So now we can see by the dashed line we have the outer area selected. So making sure we have the pattern layer selected here, we just need to hit backspace, and that will delete the pattern from the background, which is exactly what we want. Great. So I'll just click in this area just to release that selection. The next thing we need to do is just refer to our finished design to see how that looks. And as you can see, I'm zoomed in here 200%, but as you can see, the pattern is certainly not as strong as it is on ours, and there is a very slight layer effect on there. So that's what we're going to add next on ours. So what I'll do is I'll just zoom it in to 200% so we can see this clearer. Zoom in. Now we're just not in the right area to see what's going on, so what I'm going to do is hold down the space bar, and as you can see, if you just watch the icon here, instead of it being a crosshair as it is now, if I hold down shift space bar now, it just turns the icon into a little hand. And what that allows us to do is just to grab, if I click the mouse button, it allows us to grab and move around the document. Now this isn't moving any element of the document at all, there's nothing moving, so there's no need to worry about that. What it actually is, it's just allowing me to navigate around the document quickly and easily. And that's just a nice way of getting around, especially when you are zoomed in, because you'll want to use different areas of that zoomed in document. So we'll let go of spacebar there, return to our crosshair. So the next thing is to put a layer effect onto the pattern layer. So double clicking on there, that brings up our layer style window, and the only thing we're going to add on there is just a little bevel. So we'll just make sure the bevel emboss layer style is highlighted and ticked, and we'll just change a couple of things on there, and that is the depth only wants to be 10%, and the size just wants to be 1%. So if we click OK, we can see that's now been applied to there. But if we bring up our finished one, we can see it's a lot less intrusive on this design, and that's because if we look up here, although the layer opacity is 25% like ours, the fill opacity is actually 0. So that's what we need to do lastly on ours for this section, is to change, making sure of course the layer is highlighted. We'll just change that down to 0, and as if by magic almost, that is looking, and I'll just zoom out, that is looking pretty nice. So the next thing we're going to do, which is actually on the next video, is we're just going to create what they call a layer mask for this pattern layer, and that will enable us just to, because we don't want these squares going right across the length of our header and footer, we just want them to be in this top corner here and this bottom corner here. We're just going to create a layer mask, and that enables us just to fade off this pattern over a distance. But that will be all explained in the next video. I'll see you there.